house. And he talked about how that you need the foundation first. And then you build the other things. God, through all of creation here, is building layer upon layer upon layer, building to the pinnacle of his creation, which I'm not saying this as a pride manner, but the pinnacle of his creation was creation of man. The only reason we were the pinnacle of creation is that we were the image created in the likeness of God himself.
We were also the only one that he said was very good.
Very good. Very good. Amen. Now, when we start talking about animals, it is inevitable that somebody is thinking or going to ask the question, well, what about dinosaurs? So I want you to tell me, how did dinosaurs come about? Where were they at? Where have they gone? What is a biblical, is there a biblical view on dinosaurs?
You have Job that talks about the animal in Job that is apparently very large. You also have in England the dragons, where they always have the stories of dragons back in the medieval time. You also have China, which has the representation of a dragon. Different civilizations throughout time have had these different thoughts or pictures of dragons, of large lizards. I don't think that the people in ancient China conversed with the Anglo-Saxons of England back in the early days. I don't think they said, oh yeah, hey, let's make up this creature. I don't think they did. Because I think that there was actually animals around that were something like that. A lizard or a reptile grows its entire life. If you look back at before the flood, if man lived to be 1,000 years, how large is a 1,000-year-old lizard going to be? The size of a dinosaur. If you have the animals that are going to continue to expand and continue to grow, that's why I believe that there were dinosaurs around when man. You also, if you look at, if you're young Earth compared to old Earth, if you believe in the time in between, that you could have had different animals living in certain time spans before this day actually came, or before the creation of man. I do believe that there were some large lizards living in the time of man, and just have died off. In the time of Noah, like I said before, Noah's going to take baby animals. They're going to take small animals, because a larger animal would be more to feed. It would be more waste to take care of. And so if you have babies, you don't have to worry about that. If Noah takes a baby lizard or a baby reptile onto the boat and all the other animals die off, the only thing that's left are those baby animals. If no longer people are living to be 1,000 years old, those reptiles aren't going to live to be 1,000 years old, meaning that their size are going to shrink compared to what we have today.
Okay. So it is very probable that there were dinosaurs, and the again we come back through this whole series we keep coming back to Noah's flood, and I think it's because it is a purging of creation. It is Noah's flood, Noah's redemption, as we talked about a little bit last week, was a redeeming factor for creation itself. So everything that had expanded to that point had to come back to its root at Noah's flood. And I think it's very, you talk about Noah having the baby animals. I know that's not the pictures we paint, as the two lions walk into the thing, but I think it makes a lot of sense. Not only food waste, but also predatory.
And Noah didn't go out and get all these animals. It would have been impossible. They came to him. So God sent the ones that he wanted to stay. God sent the ones that he wanted to go over into the next life.
Exactly. That's an amazing concept. Now, as we've went through this, one of the things that we've talked about over and over again is a comparison between the theories of evolution. And I think it's important that we stress the word theory. As my high school science teacher told me in teaching this evolution to us in school, because he was required to, he said that evolution had holes in the theory big enough to drive a Mack truck through. And I believe that. From my teaching in public school, to things I've learned since then and things I've learned this month listening to Pastor Mike. But last week we talked about some birds that made us really question how evolution could work. Are there some land creatures that defy evolution as well?
There are several. I actually have a couple more videos. One on the bombardier beetle that will defy evolution, as well as the giraffe. So here is the first video.
Well, the first thing that we really studied together was this little bug called a bombardier beetle. And this little insect is about a ½ inch long, and it mixes chemicals that explode. So I began to think, okay, now how would that evolve? Let's say if evolution is true, and you're evolving along here, and you don't have a defense mechanism, because that is the defense mechanism of the bug. So if evolution is true, it had to somehow evolve that. So let's say it's coming along here. Well, the first time it evolves the explosion, what does it do to the bug? Boom, you just splattered your bug, okay? So splattered bug pieces don't evolve. So I thought, well, how could this have happened? Well, it doesn't blow itself up. It has another little factory inside itself that manufactures chemicals. A chemical acts as a catalyst so that when you squirt that chemical in with these other chemicals that are like in neutral, you get your explosion. Well, the first time it manufactured that little chemical, here it goes again, blew itself up again. But it doesn't. Why? Well, because it has like an asbestos-lined firing chamber. And even then it would blow itself up if it didn't have somewhere for the explosion to go. So it has like twin tail tubes. And it can aim these tail tubes all the way up, out the side, out the front. Let's say a spider is coming up toward its side and it doesn't have time to turn around and shoot. It can just take its little gun turret, aim it out there and shoot. The explosion on this little bug, all you hear, if you're listening as a human, you hear this pop. But scientists have now put that explosion in slow motion. And it's like about 1,000 sequential little explosions, but they're so fast, all we hear is one pop. And so you think, well, now, why would that be? Well, that was a curious thing for the scientists that study this little bug. A lot of them at Cornell University, some other places. And what they discovered was that if it was just one big pop, the little bug, if he's shooting like a spider, let's say over here, and he goes room, bang, and shoots it, he's going to pop himself right out of there. It's like lighting a burner on a jet engine. So he's out of there. But as long as it is a sequential explosion with his little legs, he can hang on. How would evolution explain a sequential explosion? This little bug messes with all the theories of evolution. There is no way a slow, gradual process is going to produce this bug. There's no way even the newest theories of evolution, like punctuated equilibrium, which means evolution happens very fast. Well, there's no way that will explain this little bug. I began to realize, how could this particular little animal, for instance, evolve? It needed all of its parts. It needed everything there all at once, or you just don't have the animal. And my stomach started to churn, if I really want to be honest. And my wife would tell you, my stomach churned for 5 years. It took a 5-year struggle for me to begin to flip the way I think, from thinking in an evolutionary way to thinking in more this animal or little creature, little bug, whatever, was created fully formed, just like it is. Because that went against everything I'd ever learned.
Dr. Joe Martin is this scientist in his video. He was a strict evolutionist. He's a dentist. And he was one day, his students came to him and said, well, Dr. Martin, what about creation science? And he said he'd never heard of it. He said he was a Christian for a couple years beforehand, but he had never heard of creation science. So to amuse his students, he said, all right, we'll look at it. And they started to show him assumptions. And he was looking through the assumptions and was noticing that, yeah, there are a whole lot of assumptions as far as evolution. So as he started to research the creation science, he started to look into different animals. That's why he came up with this series, Creatures That Defy Evolution. And the bombardier beetle was the first animal that he looked at. The next animal is the giraffe. A lot of us know giraffes and think they're very interesting creatures, the long necks, but there's a lot of biology that fits within inside of the giraffe that we don't really think about. So here's the video on giraffe.
A bull giraffe is about 18 feet tall. In order to get blood up that long, skinny neck against gravity,